Masha, congratulations on your new short film, Saint Vassily.
Thank you so much.
More importantly, it was showcased at Hollyshorts this year. I mean, how did you feel about that?
It was a wonderful experience. It was certainly very interesting to be put in the category of crime, which really shows how sometimes filmmakers think a certain way about their work, and when it's exhibited, they realize how others see it, how others program it. And initially, we thought about it as a historical drama, and maybe a bit thriller-esque drama. But when we saw it as part of the showcase in the crime section, we really realized how it sort of shines in a different way when put together with other films in that section. So yeah, it was a really wonderful experience.
Wow, it sounds like you did actually have an excellent experience in Hollywood itself. So tell us where the original idea came from for Saint Vassily.
Well, initially, I was working on a documentary about the collaboration between the KGB, so the Soviet Secret Services, and the Russian Orthodox Church. It did have importance to me because I am born and raised in Russia. I moved away from there 12 years ago, so I've seen its sort of slow descent at the time into a more totalitarian country, although I didn't leave there when it became what it is today, right now. So I certainly wanted to deconstruct how that happened, what the root of that evil was. But it was when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, in February 2022, that I realized that I need to be working on something else, and something that has more gravity and hits a bit deeper and talks a bit more about the real root of compromise and the real root of how people change under the pressure of the state. So this is how this film came about, really.
I was going to say, the topic homosexuality is a very relevant one in Russia. Can you address that?
Well, obviously, homosexuality was criminalized in the Soviet Union. It was then decriminalized during the post-Soviet era when Russia became independent, sort of separate Russia, not Soviet Russia anymore. And it was recriminalized just about a year ago, or maybe less than a year ago. Even though that law was put on paper only recently, realistically, the lives of people who belong to the LGBTQ community changed a very long time ago, and you could see the changes, the transformations in Russia, and how the state views people who belong to that community more than like 10 years ago. So that bill is really just the result of the processes that has been going on for such a long time. Personally, I think that the Russian state today weaponizes that law to create an internal enemy and to create a sense that there is someone other that doesn't belong to our quote unquote conservative Christian, righteous, self righteous society. I just really hope that one day when things are very different in Russia, we're also going to see that that xenophobia can be very much taught and can be very much unlearned.
So there is a strong correlation with your film based in 1982 to what's going on today then.
Yeah, certainly. When I was writing it, when I was in pre-production, at every step of the making of that film, I knew that it was made to be relevant today. I would say that I purposefully did not want to set it in modern day Russia because it felt a bit too close to home, and I felt like I would not see things clearly or clearly enough if I were to set it in Putin's Russia. But it was always meant to be watched as a parallel to what is going on in that country today.
Now, one of the most notable things in your film is Oscar Wilde. I personally never read any of his books, but tell us about the significance of Oscar Wilde in this case.
Well, that's actually very funny that you brought it up because on the way Oscar Wilde is seen in Russia and was seen in the Soviet Union shows what a paradoxical place it is. Because on the one hand, so many things were banned, so many things that had to do with the LGBTQ community were banned, but Oscar Wilde actually wasn't. And when I did my research and I spoke to people of a different generations, people who are 20, 30, 40 years older than me, they read the script and it told me, but you know that it actually wasn't banned. And actually in Moscow theaters and in St. Petersburg theaters, there were lots and lots of Oscar Wilde plays because the Soviets just really liked them. And they just pretended like he wasn't gay and they just like omitted it from his biography altogether. And I find it so fascinating how they just rewrite history whenever they simply like the art of that person. In the film, the protagonist finds that book, and in the room, in his own room where he lives with his roommate, and the book certainly belongs to the roommate, not to him, and he gets scared of it, like as if it's something dirty and something awful, and it's evidence that's gonna somehow criminalize him. But what I was trying to show is also that there's lots of self-censorship. And even though Oscar Wilde was not banned, someone of the profile of Vassily, of our protagonist, someone who's so self-righteous but also very scared of doing anything wrong, would see it and immediately think, oh my God, I should not have that. I should not have that in my room. It's dangerous. So it's really more about the dangers of self-censorship um, rather than anything else. Yeah.
Wow, that's actually very interesting. And how did you come up with the name Vasily for itself for the title?
That's funny. It's well-known cathedral in the city center of Moscow called Saint Basil Cathedral, and Basil is the westernized version of Vasily. And it was a saint, Basil. I want to say the Blessed, but I'm not sure. I think it was a like a saint fool, like someone who is not fully in touch with reality. So initially, my character was a bit of a saintly fool. He was someone who thought that he was doing something so saintly and self-righteous and something so good that he didn't see the world around him. As we developed the script, the character changed, but the name remained. And it's also a very basic Russian name, so I felt like this could be anyone. This is my protagonist could be anyone, you know.
Well,
Yeah.
well said, well said. So how was the casting process and you ended up with Billy?
Oh wow, that was very exciting and not easy, especially as a young director. Um, as a young director, I know very well what kind of visual language I want to employ in my film, but I don't always know how exactly to direct my actors, and this is something that I'm really learning. And so when I was searching for the people, I was trying to understand in the conversations with them or from the self tapes and whatnot, whether they're going to also teach me back something. So that's also quite interesting. With the younger cast, we did self tapes, and with older cast, we did not, and we just offered the roles to the people who we already know were absolutely incredible, and we knew that we really, really wanted to work with them. So we got so lucky to be able to work with Hugh Ross and with Michael Schaeffer. So Hugh Ross plays Father Kirill, the Archbishop of the Academy, and Michael Schaeffer plays the KGB agent Fyodor Sergeyevich. But then also the kind of collaboration that I had with Jake Needs, who plays Pavel, the best friend of Vasily, and with Billy Gunnion, who is our protagonist, is just unbelievable. And I'm really looking forward to working with them again.
Now, the I always find it funny is because if anyone makes a film based in Russia, there's always that debate on the Russian accent on whether to use it in their films. Did you have that same debate for yourself in this film?
Funnily enough, not at all. I am a big, big fan of Craig Mazin's Chernobyl. And as someone who grew up in Russia and knows the how the language sounds and knows what an authentic representation of Russia and the Soviet Union would look like, I watched that series and I thought to myself, oh wow, so you can really achieve authenticity by other means other than language because everyone speaks English and with a very posh sort of English accent in the series. And yet you feel like you are in Soviet Ukraine, you are in Soviet Russia, you are around Chernobyl. You never doubt it. And so when I watched that, I remember thinking, I really want to do that. I don't know if I can pull it off as well as they did, but I'm going to try it anyway. I know that authenticity can be achieved in other ways.
Now, speaking of authenticity, 1982 it's all it's to many of us is considered like a period piece, but you didn't have to make too much adjustments, for the production of to portray 1982. Could you tell us about the how you try to, capture that essence of 1982 into this? I mean, personally, I felt cold myself.
I'm glad to hear that. We also shot 99% of it in the UK, in London. So what you're seeing and you're thinking that it's a theological academy near Moscow is actually Fulham Palace in London, and it's the church, the Greek Orthodox Church in Battersea in London, and lots of fake snow, which is very slippery in real life. So be careful if you ever do that. But in terms of production design, that was actually quite difficult. That was one of the biggest challenges for us because we wanted things to be very authentic, like I said before. And I was adamant that we need to have as many authentic props as we can. So we sourced bed sheets from the Soviet era, from friends of friends, from parents of friends. We went to flea markets. Some people helped us deliver literal suitcases of props from Moscow, where I no longer go ever since Russia invaded Ukraine. And so it's been quite challenging in terms of the logistics of how to bring those props. But it's also been extremely exciting to try and recreate that world, especially because in terms of the bedroom of the protagonist, if you watch the film, you'll see that the bedroom plays a very big role in it, and it's basically fully built from scratch. And we brought the beds, we brought the bed sheets and everything, and so all of the props that you see, they're authentic from the era. Um, so for me, it was a very moving moment because I was born in 95. So I was reconstructing the era from before when I was born. And it felt like you're really traveling both in space to a different country, but also in time. And I absolutely love doing that.
Wow, that must have been an interesting experience and feeling as a young director, trying to film something that's way before your time.
Absolutely. And speaking to people from that era and hearing them say, "Oh, that's not authentic. That's not how it was," or "Oh my God, that's exactly how it was when I was young." And the faces you see when they say, "Oh my God, it's exactly that." It's honestly, it's incredible. You really feel like you're reconstructing that reality and then sort of bringing it to your audience that has never been there before.
Now, how did you come to the decision of making this as a short film? Is it just basically a matter of circumstance, or did you actually have like a possibly a larger idea beyond the short film?
That's a very good question because to make a small sort of detour, I'd say that lots of people think that short films are only a gateway to a feature. And I think that they're not necessarily that they are an art form in their own right. That said, I wanted to make a short film both because I felt like my story fit that duration, but also because I know what I can do and what I can't do. And I think that it's a good way for younger directors to start with a short and then go into feature for many reasons, including pragmatic reasons that no one's going to trust you with a feature unless you've done something before. But also knowing that I don't want to turn it into a feature film, but it was very much a proof of concept in terms of the kind of sensibility and the visual language that I want to employ, especially that because I'm interested in the genre of historical drama. And I know that I want to make another feature that is a historical drama. And I wanted to know what kind of visual language, what kind of aesthetic, but also ethic I would employ in that film. And I needed that training and I needed to try it out and to test it out to understand how I would do it in the future.
Well said, well said. And tell us about your journey into filmmaking. What got you started? What makes you interested in this industry?
Hmm. I mean, I come from the background of painting, so I've been painting my entire life, really, especially as a child, as a teenager. And so I knew that I wanted to do visual arts, But then I felt like I needed a clearer communication with the audience. And this was essentially my move into the narrative world when I realized that yes, the visual is there, but I need language. I'm missing language basically. So it was a very natural move. And I studied art history at UCL in London. And already, roughly first year, second year, I realized that I wanted to make films, and I wrote a bunch of really bad scripts. Um, they're really, really bad. And then during my master's, I actually made my first short film. And this is how it all started. And you have a wonderful cat. I really like cats. Um, and yeah, ever since I worked as an editor, I worked as an assistant director. I tried to get into the industry and understand how it works. And I guess it's only just now that I'm actually understanding a bit better how it works. And hopefully, we'll make another short film very soon and developing several feature projects at the same time. So, yeah, that's my journey.
So is this project like a bridge? Because a lot of directors they go documentary route, they go feature film route, and is this like a bridge for yourself to basically head towards the the narrative films?
Um, yes. I've so the first short film that I made was also a narrative short. This is a narrative short, so I'm mostly working within the narrative world. I do have a documentary project in mind that I initially was working on when I decided to change my mind and do the fiction film. Um, but I'd say that narrative is what interests me the most. And yes, certainly this film is a trampoline into the industry, if you wish. This is the first time I'm actually understanding how things are working a bit better in terms of how festivals are working, how funding is working. And hopefully from now on, there's going to be a slightly clearer route um, to make more films.
Well said, well said. Well, I've taken a lot of your time already. Can you tell us what's up next in the pipeline, or everything is still in work in progress and ideas in your head?
Everything is work in progress, but thank God, slightly more tangible than just ideas. There are several projects in development, different stages of development. Some are very early ideas, but I'd say that more tangible ones are a feature psychological thriller. Um, and it has, I don't know how much I want to give away actually, but it's a dark thriller happening in one apartment in Paris, revolving around three female characters. I'd put it this way. And then another feature is a historical drama that takes place in the Soviet labor camps, in specifically in the labor camp around the White Sea Channel, the construction of the White Sea Channel in 1931. So that's going to be hopefully a much darker, more sprawling story than Saint Vassily. Um, but this is my real passion project that I think I'm going to take my time to write, because I think it's extremely important to talk about that subject. Um, there's more going on, but I think that I need to wrap it up because I can talk about my movies nonstop. So
Yeah, it's funny because you're circling back to the Soviet Union once again, where
yeah.
you never lived a day in the life of of.
Yeah, but I feel like you need to go to the root of where it all went wrong, and it's just so hard to pinpoint one moment. So I think I'm gonna spend a lifetime making films about different eras of the Soviet Union or Imperial Russia or whatnot, just trying to understand how this country became what it is. Yeah.
Well said, well said. Well, I enjoyed this conversation. Thank you very much for speaking to Saint Vassily. Hopefully Russia changes so that you could return to your motherland one day and make films there too. So, but I'm certain we will talk again.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.